Amendment number 55, offered by Ms. Edwards.
Ms. Edwards,
Mr. Chairman,
recognized.
I have an amendment at the desk, yes. I ask unanimous consent that the amendment be considered as read.
Without objection, so ordered.
And he recognizes me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me for 5 minutes. Thank you. At the dawn of the 21st century, much of our drinking water infrastructure is nearing the end of its useful life. There are an estimated 240,000 water main breaks per year in the United States. Our pipes and mains are frequently more than 100 years old and in need of replacement. Assuming every pipe would need to be replaced, the cost over the coming decades could reach more than $1 trillion, according to the American Water Works Association. According to a scorecard by the American Society of Civil Engineers, America's drinking water infrastructure is rated as a D. As we've seen with the recent events in Flint, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, Charleston, West Virginia, and not that long ago in Baltimore, Maryland, America's water infrastructure is in dire need of renewed federal investment. Communities across the nation face a backlog of over $40 billion in clean water infrastructure projects, and they need close to $300 billion of investment over the next 20 years to protect clean water and bring their systems to a state of good repair. We cannot continue to neglect the serious needs of our aging water infrastructure system. It's been said that Baltimore's infrastructure is like a time bomb. Rudy Chow, the city's public works director, has been quoted as saying, quote, this old infrastructure we know is going to fail. The question is where and when. And they've committed $1.5 billion to replace and rebuild things, though the need is much greater, in the range of $4 billion. Since the revelation about Flint, Michigan, many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle have stated that they want to address our water infrastructure and are waiting for the proper time and bill to do so. Well, today affords us that opportunity. Ranking Member DeFazio and Subcommittee Ranking Member Napolitano have introduced legislation to reauthorize federal appropriations for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Every single Democrat of this committee is a co-sponsor of that legislation. My amendment today is that exact bill. Passing this amendment would provide us with the opportunity to reauthorize the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, an accomplishment that last occurred in 1987. I want to say that again, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, as long as we're talking about bills that we need to get in order, and we've done that in a bipartisan way on this committee, it was last reauthorized in 1987. And as we know, investing in clean water creates thousands of new domestic jobs in the construction industry and reduces the overall cost of constructing and maintaining that infrastructure. According to the National Utility Contractors Association, for every $1 billion spent on our nation's water infrastructure, 27,000 jobs are created in communities all across America while improving public health and environment at the same time. In addition, according to the Water Environmental Research Foundation, water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities will contribute $524 billion to the U.S. economy over the next decade, supporting 289,000 permanent jobs. Without federal investment, municipalities will be forced to cover more than 95% of the cost of clean water projects. The fact is, without federal investment, the work just will not get done. And as my colleagues know, one of our most important jobs is to protect the welfare and health of the American public. And so this legislation today is a step in the right direction, since it would help local governments repair and replace failing wastewater infrastructure, safeguard wastewater systems, and protect public health. And I urge all of my colleagues on the committee to support this important amendment. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, you've done an amazing and spectacular job working with the minority on the committee in trying to move forward legislation that gets people back to work and repairs our failing infrastructure. This would be one more feather in the cap, and so I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. And I also want to, if he's still in the room, to recognize my foster child shadow person for the day, Christoph, who's visiting with us and gets to see the important work that we do here. And he's told me that one day he wants to be in Congress. Good luck with that. Thank you. And I yield the balance of my time.
Where is he?
He's right here.
Oh.
Christoph, say hi.
Welcome to the committee. Thank you very much for that, offering the amendment. I think we all know that there's a tremendous shortfall out there in investment in our waste treatment facilities. Although I have to oppose this amendment because it does fall outside the scope of the WRDA bill. And again, we're trying to keep this thing tight. This is not one of the core. It goes beyond the core civil works programs. And again, in an attempt to keep this bill tight and keep it moving forward, I would have to oppose this bill. But I certainly understand what the gentlelady is trying to do, and I know that, as I said, there's a tremendous backlog out there and a need for investment in waste treatment facilities, water facilities, and so certainly, as I said, I understand it, but need to oppose it at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would, and I appreciate that statement. You have done a really amazing job in a very contentious Congress in getting stuff done that hasn't been done for years. And all of us really appreciate that. And what I'd like is some consideration in this Congress to really tackle this issue that's just been sitting out there. And with that, I withdraw the amendment.
I appreciate the gentlelady's kind words, but again, the only way I can do these things is working with all of you, all of us working together, and when we come to a challenging issue is to put it aside and try to find common ground, and we've been able to do it, and I appreciate your work in that regard. And we do need to continue to look at this because there is a tremendous backlog in my district the Susquehanna River Valley, which feeds the Chesapeake. I mean, we all want to make sure the Chesapeake Bay stays clean. The EPA continues to ramp up the requirements on the farming communities and low-income senior communities in my district, and it's very difficult. So we've got to figure out a way how, if the federal government is going to impose these types of regulations, there has to be some kind of assistance, and there has been. But again, it's a tremendous need out there. So I appreciate the gentlelady's concern and thoughtfulness on this issue, and I appreciate you for withdrawing the amendment.